My name's Tony Pollintine. I'm a director of Grainge Architects. It's a practice of 24 architects based in Exeter. Coincidentally, we're down on the quay, very close to the Rockfish project. My partner, James Brooks, and I, we maintain a very active role in the practice. I'm involved with all the design projects within the practice, and that's the way I like it. We basically set the practice up on the back of a number of quite important local projects, and our architecture is about finding solutions to local problems and meeting clients' needs. We pride ourselves on not having a company style. We very much like every project to be treated individually. The client and the brief is always the most important thing of our projects. We operate a studio environment where the youngest of our architects are in this studio space with us, and we think that one of the successes of our practice is the fact that we've got all these bright young things in the office, and we're all working together on a range of projects. We work across all sectors: education, commercial buildings, residential. They're very busy for us at the moment. Some of our greatest successes have been with educational buildings, and the philosophy of getting to the bottom of briefing issues with clients and designing bespoke solutions, that's key to our success. We're not ivory tower architects. We really believe in there are many ways to judge successful buildings, and it's not about just sitting up in your ivory tower dispensing design to people. It's actually about understanding their lives and understanding what the most important factors about their buildings are to those clients. The client who originally instigated this project were the landlords of the quay. Essentially, they had an opportunity with the vacant site on the Piazza Terracina. They looked around for suitable co-development partners to bring into the project, and Mitch Tonks of Rockfish came forward. So this project is really a collaboration between two parties, being the Jacobs family, who are the landlords of the site, and the Rockfish chain, of which Mitch Tonks is the leading person in that process. So we had to work with both the developer and the end user on this project to actually develop an economic, cost-effective solution for the developer, but at the same time meet the aspirations of the client. And that had to be juggled with the aspirations of the planning department. So it was a multifaceted project, and we had to sensitively balance the requirements of these three differing parties. When we first instigated this project, we were aware of the historical precedents because there was an extant planning permission on the site, but the planners were still quite nervous of the prospect of a building going on this site. So we saw the Design Review Panel as an opportunity to bolster our case and our client's case, because we knew if we could present a design of sufficient quality, we could get the support of the Design Review Panel, and that positive response from the Design Review Panel would hold us in good stead with the planning department. And so we really used the Design Review Panel, if you like, as allies in the process of actually getting a good piece of architecture through the planning process. Our clients have really felt there's value in actually getting an unbiased professional expert opinion that the planners can use as evidence in supporting the case for approval. We feel that the panel actually is a real positive thing to suggest to clients, because the more weight we have behind our design, if we've got 6 independent peers, fellow architects promoting our scheme and actually telling the planners and the council what the positive aspects of the scheme are, that's a really powerful thing to be able to offer. When taking projects to the Design Review Panel, to get the most out of the panel, you clearly can't be too fixed in your ideas. You've got to go there with open ears, but at the same time, you need to balance that against giving the panel confidence that this is a really good design they can get behind and support. So in this particular instance, the design was well developed, but even so, there was areas that were suggested for improvement, just fairly minor things, nothing major, no replanning, but just a sort of a slight improvement, if you like, just a general review of the design, the detailing, the consistency of the way we'd approach the project, and actually getting your peers to review the project and just offer advice, I found really useful. When we met with the design review panel, what was really useful about the panel was the cross-section of professionals who were on that panel. We had urban designers, architects and landscape architects, and that was really important for this project because there's clearly a large urban design element with the context and the piazza. It's an urban space. The landscape setting of the building is really important. You've got the Exeter Canal Basin, you've got the River Exe itself, and that hard landscape of the Piazza Terracina, that needs careful thought. The planning input was balanced with the architectural input in that we had some panel members who'd actually put together fairly complicated building types, and understanding the fine detail is as much of an issue as understanding the landscape setting. One of the panel members was particularly useful in that he had a preference for modernist architecture, and he was able to help us refine the final details of the building. In terms of the weight that the planning department gives to the design review panel comments, I think if the architect has produced a good design and the panel's summation of that is clear, I think tremendous weight can be gained from the advice of the design review panel. The planning officers are actually pro-development. They're looking for reasons to approve these buildings, and we're helping them write their reports and their recommendations. And if we give them that background information, it makes their job a whole lot easier. They've actually got the information to support their reports, their recommendations for approval. They can use the design review panel as the first draft of their planning report. This presentation is about the new Rockfish Restaurant proposed for Exeter Quay. We began this project about 18 months ago, and initial discussions with the planning department were heavily influenced by our client's aspirations for the site. He wanted a much more kind of rustic barn type building on the site, but the planners' aspirations for the site were very much about celebrating the industrial heritage of the quay. And really, although our client was reluctant to embrace this in the beginning of the process, he really came on side in the end, and the resultant building, we feel, is a real celebration of what used to previously happen down here on Exeter Quay. The site is actually directly between the River Exe itself and the beginning of the Exeter Canal Basin. The Piazza Terracina is an urban space that has the electricity building to the south. It has a range of shops to the west, and our building will sit in the centre of the piazza, and it really will become the new focal point of the piazza. There are some historic warehouses to the side of our building that front the Exeter Canal, but this building really will become a jewel in the crown of the quay. The site is probably about a mile from the Exeter city centre, but it's a really important area for the city because it's an area that is a barometer of the success of Exeter. As buildings have been developed more recently down on the quay, it's really shown how Exeter is developing as a city, and for that reason the planners are really glad that this building is coming forward. It could be a catalyst for further development on the quay. The planning guidance for the site was quite prescriptive in terms of the type of building that could be accepted, a minimal kind of glass building, something that related to the industrial heritage, as I said before, are really important factors in this building. The need for active frontages and the urban design of this scheme are really important. The fact that our building is a pavilion, it doesn't have any back edges, it's very much about the four sides of the building. And in fact, the four sides are further complicated because the roof of our building is viewed from the listed Colleton Crescent, which is directly above the quayside. And so we've taken great care to design a green roof on the building that really reflects that fifth elevation. Our intention is to actually plant a green roof, and it will be an indigenous roof, so it will reflect the planting of the local area, and it'll give a seasonal element to the building, so that green roof will ebb and wane with the seasons, and it becomes a very important part of the building. The views in and out of the site are quite different actually. We've got the backdrop of the historic buildings, we've got this 20th century sort of row of shops and the other sort of larger buildings on the piazza, and so our building really has to bring all those different types of architecture together. The historic past of the quay is reflected in the Piazza Terracina, the old railway lines that used to cross the site, the railway storage sheds, all of this engendered this sort of industrial heritage that existed on the site. Some of the key constraints of the site, the need to have an open aspect to the building must feel open. The glassy quality of the building is really about the ability of people to look through the building and simultaneously see the river and the canal together. The service block, which sits in the middle of our building, is made of hereditary stone, and this is reflected in the local warehouse buildings, those 18th century warehouse buildings, the red stone. We're using those materials that are evident around our building, actually in the new building. The site is actually quite a small site. It's approximately 500 square meters, the overall size of the site. We're putting a 274 square meter building into that site. That gives us a little bit of space for outside seating. We've got to provide some additional seating for the Bar Venezia who will co-use this site, and they'll have some benching outside in the landscape. We have thought very hard about the levels of the building, ensuring that we have access for all. The outside terrace area of the new restaurant will be sloped gradually down to the existing piazza level. That's so that we can have wheelchair access to the building. The materials I've spoken about already, they've been very carefully selected. We want this glassy building to actually look quite neutral in its appearance. It won't be reflective glass, it'll be a natural colour glass so that the light moves through the building and you're aware of the surroundings with the building. We don't want it to be hugely reflective, so we've taken great care to ensure that the glass type that we specified and the details all work with this. The flood risk assessment of the site meant that it was really important to actually lift the building up, probably about 500 millimetres, to get it out of that flood zone. There's lots of works going on around the quay at the moment with flood defence work, and our building has been designed to fit into that strategy as well. The building will hopefully start, subject to getting planning permission, in early 2018, so watch this space. This is a SketchUp model that we prepared for the Rockfish Restaurant. This aerial views from the south, showing the outside terrace area and the main entrance to the new building. You've got the backdrop of Collerton Crescent in the rear of the picture there, and we're panning round past the old railway turntable and the actual Piazza Terracina. We're now going up the disabled access into the building. You can see the ramp up there from the piazza, the wholly glass elevations of the building, and this is the riverside walk where you can look down into the River Exe. People using the restaurant will sit in this glass elevation looking out onto the river, watching the boat traffic and the rowers and the people generally using the river. You can see the electricity building in the rear of this shot. This is the service entrance of the building. Behind that timber screen are all the bins and the back of the building, if you want. That was a particularly difficult thing to include in this design because it had 4 elevations that were highly public. But we feel that this solution actually works, and it isn't at the detriment of the adjoining shops. Finally, we come up and look down on the scheme, and you can see the 2 grass roofed areas where the indigenous wildflower roofs will be placed.